Welcome to another episode of Bad Catholic Dads. I'm here with the fantastic co-captain, John Perez. John, how are you?
Dude, what is up, man? What is up?
You know, that song gets me fired up. I'm so sure it gets you fired up.
Now. I'm definitely fired up. I mean, football around the corner. I think this might be the last week of preseason, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because I think it starts next Thursday on the 7th, I believe, is when it starts up.
Yep, definitely.
So this is like the last weekend without football. That's crazy. But hey, John, first of all, how have you been?
I've been good. I've been real good.
Today is an exciting day.
Today is a very exciting day. Today is definitely an exciting day.
So, I mean, I'm sure I need to know, all the viewers need to know, how was the first day of school, man?
First day of school was great. So like last week was more of like orientation week with the freshman students, and then today all the other students came, like, you know, sophomores through seniors. I have juniors and freshmen, so freshmen was good because I already met them and I already kind of like talked with them and everything. But juniors, it was more of just like getting to know each other, talking about the syllabus, stuff like that. But it was good though. It was good. The only thing I'll say is like after not being in work like the whole summer and coming back to work, like I underestimated how tired I would be, you know, like just like having the summer off and getting that mood of just relaxing and then trying to get back into the swing of things. And I'll even say like high school, like especially like having to get ready for like your lesson plans, it's a lot different than teaching younger kids. I feel overwhelmed a little bit, but you know, with the Holy Spirit, I think we'll get through it. Hopefully we'll get through it. Yeah.
Did you hit that certain time during the day where you're like, dude, I'm done? You know, like I'm too tired right now. Did coffee bring you back or anything else?
I had 2 cups of coffee, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. I knew I needed it. There was one point where I have 4 classes like without a break. So it's like second period through fifth period. So second, third, fourth, and fifth. And that was pretty tiring. Like the cool part is one of the things I noticed about high school is that you teach the same class over and over and over again. It's like, cause I have like 2 sets of freshmen and 3 sets of juniors. It's just, you like see what works and see what doesn't work, which is really cool. Like one of my classes like was super quiet. Like I was telling jokes and everything and they were super quiet. And I had another class that I tried it like a different way and they were like more, you know, laughing about it.
Yeah, more receptive
so I was like,
to it.
This is cool. Like if something doesn't work in one class, then I know I can try differently or I can just completely gut it for the next class. But other than that, really, really great day, first day of school.
I find it fascinating just to think of that, where you have these different groups of individuals that you can use, you know, a different process and, you know, to get out the same information, but you can use a different like attempt. It's really, I can't wait to hear how the rest of the year goes.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm really excited just with you being in the theology department. This is going to be so great for you as well. Yeah. Just growing spiritually.
No, definitely. It's definitely like I need the Holy Spirit as much as I need water right now. You know what I mean? There's like a certain point where I was thinking about it and I was like I love youth ministry and, you know, you do too, obviously, right? Like that's your job. I feel like there's a lot of youth ministry in teaching, but more like kind of like a formal version of it, you know?
Absolutely.
And I was thinking about it and like, I'm not like obviously hating on youth ministry, but I was like thinking about like, you know how you prepare like the entire week just for that 1 week or the one day you have with the kids. I feel like that's like teaching basically, not to the extent where you're preparing so much, but there is a lot of preparation that I didn't realize that would come with teaching high schoolers. It seems like I'm preparing so much, but then I have to do it all over again for the next day. You know what I mean? So it's definitely like getting used to, and I think it just comes with the territory, and I just need to get used to it. But I think for the first day it went really well, but I'm nervous. I feel overwhelmed, but I think we're gonna be okay. I just got to kind of get in my groove and hit my stride here.
My hat's off to any, like you and any teacher, because you have to bring your A game every day, even when you're not feeling it. You know, you have to be this energy for these young students to just fall in love with their faith or whatever subject that you're teaching. And that is a lot of pressure on you and other teachers. So
Sure.
You're definitely going to be in our prayers like going
Definitely.
forward because, I mean, you're going to need it for that. Just jump. Your
Sure.
drive there was okay. Like all the
Dude,
traffic was
the
alright.
drive there was fine. So today was the first day of school, so school traffic did play into effect where I was like, I could have got there way earlier, but then I realized like I just need to take a different way to get to school.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of the problem with the school that I work at is just one entrance for everyone. For school buses, for parents to drop off their kids, or other students to park. I mean, there's other entrances, but there's like a main entrance, like everyone knows, because it's like one side of the street is one way and the other side of the street is the other way. So it's all one way. And then the teacher's parking lot's on the side, but I have to go through the same traffic as everyone. But if I just take a different way, I think I'll be okay. Like for tomorrow, like I know now,
I recently too. You had the opportunity to be the godfather of good old Isaac,
Your son,
and you're gonna listen, man. You're gonna have to be extra busy too because this kid needs prayers, man. He is my wife more specifically, like just driving us to our wits ends. The kid cries so much. And
Sure.
It's not colic, it's not any of this stuff, but he just needs the prayers, and especially Bethany. For me, it's a difficult time right now because I can't help out as much as I want with the baby. Like I can hold him for a while, but that's not really satisfying any of the needs of the baby. I can, help with diaper, just give a break for Bethany. But Isaac has just lately just been one of our more difficult babies that we've had.
Oh,
and
man.
I know for Bethany, being the fourth kid that we've had here with Isaac, it's just, you want an easier go at it. And right now he's being a little bit. So not only with teaching your students are you going to be busy, but you have to be praying for this God's leaders. Cause
dude. And like,
he's getting us.
Yeah. And one of the things I noticed about like working and having kids at the same, kind of like at the same time is that like, I've noticed that I've like become aware of like, I need to leave work, and I need to go home because like, I was thinking like, should I stay till like 7 because I have so much to do, like so much. And I'm just like, no, I really should just go home and be with my kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's made me appreciate more of like just the quality time we like the intentional time we spend with our kids, like just being intentional with our time. Because today I'm just like, I'm not going to see my kids that much anymore. And so I really got to take the time I have and just like forget video games, forget working for now. I just need to spend time with my kids, like, and my wife as well. Shout out to my wife.
Yeah.
It's
and
tough.
that's kind of a good transition into what we're going to be talking about, because like we mentioned before, and we had that great football drop in the beginning for the music. We have football season so fast approaching.
Oh yeah.
And I know for you are excited for this football season.
I'm super excited. Are you excited, Derek?
I
guess it just depends on the team you root for, right?
It does,
like
right?
It totally does, right? Like, I mean, although like every team is 0-0 and every team has technically the same shot to get to the Super Bowl,
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, if you're looking at it, but some of us know better, man. It's I just posted something today. We have the Time Hop app.
I love that, by the way. That's so funny that you posted that today.
Well, and it was so funny because for those that don't follow John or I on Twitter or anything like that, feel free to do so, or Facebook or anything like that. But what I looked at for the Time Hop was 4 years ago. I had said the Buffalo Bills haven't had a playoff appearance.
That was 4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago when I said that.
Oh,
they haven't had a playoff appearance, in the same amount of time that we've had 3 popes, basically.
That can't be right. Is that really true?
When I looked at the Time Hop, I'm like, I was given false information. That can't be true.
No, that
I'm
can't
like,
be.
There's no way there could be 3 active popes by the last time the Bills made the playoffs.
No. Because remember they lost the Music City Miracle, right?
Exactly, and that's in 1999. So count had since then. JP became pope at 1978, and then after JP2, who did we have?
A Pope Emeritus.
He's the one I forgot. Yep, we had Pope, and now we have Pope Francis. So that's 3 popes since.
Man,
like isn't that sad?
But no? They didn't make the playoffs during the 2000s.
No, 1999 was the last time.
Wow.
And let's not even talk about the when the last time they won a playoff game, because that's even longer. But making the playoffs. So for me as a Bills fan, for some reason it's in our genetics. We are just born to suffer,
sure.
And that's just part of it. What about for you though? I mean, you have the other end of this, which is someone that's actually won 2 Super Bowls against the pitiful Bills in the 90s. But how about you? Like, you were excited for maybe different reasons.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think every year, because of the nature of being a Cowboys fan, I'm always excited, like regardless whether the team is good or bad. There's always kind of this special stigma of being a Cowboys fan and rooting for the Cowboys. It's like one of, obviously America like loves to hate the Cowboys or just absolutely loves the Cowboys, right? Like they consistently get the #1 ratings all the time. But I think for me personally, I'm always excited just because I love football. I love watching football. I especially love watching my Dallas Cowboys play on Sundays. But I think after last year and after the surprise that last year was, I'm definitely excited, and I'm even more excited to just see what the ultimate decision is on our running back and his trial. So we'll see. Right. We'll see. Like a lot of it hinges on that, but even if he does get the suspension upheld, like I'm not too worried because, I mean, yeah, he was a big part of our offense, but also there was our quarterback who was another big part of our offense as well. So I'm super excited regardless of what happens. Like,
yeah, it's you and I are both, America may hate you because you're a Cowboys fan.
Sure.
I know America pities me for being a Bills fan.
I don't know. They don't pity you as much as they pity Browns or Jets fans, though. Like, you got to take that as a win.
But they've made the playoffs more times than the Bills, and like you don't have 4 years of absolute failure in the Super Bowl too, right in a row. Where as a kid, and that's what I want to talk about too. Like growing up as a child, football was a big part of my family's life, and when I was starting to actually pay attention to football was when it seemed like every January, the Bills were doing something called the Super Bowl. And my dad would always have these parties and always have people over. And I thought that was just a yearly thing. It was every year for 4 years in a row.
Hey, that'd be nice, right? Like,
oh, I know. And I thought that was normal.
That's basically being a Patriots fan nowadays. Like every year, you're throwing a party, dude.
I always give my dad a hard time. I'm like, Dad, because like fans of something else. Because I am a product of my father. And what he has, as a fan, for me personally, we're supposed to only root for the Bills, and we're supposed to hate the Yankees. So those are the two from being my father's son, and other things as well. But at least for sports related.
Are you guys Mets fans? Like why do you like? I don't understand the hate for the Yankees.
Not really. Well, the Yankees, that's just my dad's preference, and I was, I was like, well, they're like the big dogs, man. They're like the Cowboys.
But they're also from New York too, like your home state. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, we're not real New Yorkers in Western New York.
Sure,
man.
that makes total sense.
Like Canadians. It's not real New Yorkers. It's like, I have nothing in common with the New York City.
So Toronto would be like technically your team, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing with baseball is that we had the Buffalo Bisons, which is the farm team for the Cleveland Indians. So, and then that changed to the Mets. So we were always just a mess of cheering.
Sure.
But it was always football. That was a big thing with my dad, and that was the one thing, my connection with my dad was he was always a big fan of sports. And that was the common ground growing up as a kid. There was always that awkward moment in the car where it's like, I'm here with my dad and there's nothing. That was always the safe ground to speak of. And that's where I got to see my dad really articulate ideas and feelings and expressions was for sports teams. So that's something that he really gave me. And that is still to this day my connection with my dad. If I hear something on the news or something that about our football team, I can send a text to my dad and I know I will get a sarcastic or quirky response from my father because he is always caught up with that stuff. And so for me, that is a big part of my family just because that is my connection to my dad. That is his big thing. He would be wearing his Buffalo Bills NFL like just sweater. He would watch the stuff. We would throw the football around every now and then outside, but it was always about cheering for the Bills. And as soon as they started doing poorly, he would like, well, we suck again, and that was the whole thing with him. He would always have this negative thing if they were doing poorly. And it was always a fun thing to kind of play off of with my dad because I was always like, there's still time, Dad. We can still come back. And my dad's like, no, they're done. It's another year down the drains. And as our seasons have gone on and we've gotten worse and worse, it's kind of, escalated his, cantankerous nature, and he's a curmudgeon for this football stuff. And it is really fun. And I do appreciate what football has given for me like that. For you, Jon, how was it growing up with football in your house?
Oh, football was huge. Every Sunday, every Super Bowl, kind of like, I'm sure just like you. But I didn't actually I didn't take after my dad though in football. I actually took opposite of my dad, which is really funny. So growing up, my dad and his family, his side of the family, immigrated to California and New Jersey from the Philippines, as you know, as the listeners know, as the audience knows. And so my whole family in New Jersey, being from Jersey, like more people are fans of, either the Jets or the New York Giants. And so growing up, my dad was a huge Giants fan when he moved to the States.
Wow.
And so for me, like, I wish my dad forced me to like his teams? Yeah, a little bit. But then there goes free will. You know what I mean? And so,
yeah.
And so, like, but we would have had that connection, which would have been cool. I'll totally admit, it would have been awesome to root for the same team as my dad, which I'm doing to my son. I'm taking away his free will, and he's just gonna like all the teams that I like because of that. But I will say that my dad being cool and just like kind of letting me choose my teams, and it's funny because we didn't live in a so like a lot of players, a lot of people choose the teams that are like local to them, right? Like they'll choose, like, you don't have a choice, you just root for the local team. And so we were in an interesting position because we lived in Virginia Beach and there is no team. The closest team is the Redskins or the Carolina Panthers. And then so my original story, like, and this, this is kind of like, I don't know, whatever, I'm just telling you like a heartfelt story, is that Thanksgiving 1998, I believe, or 1996, 97, around that age. I think I was about 6 or 7 years old. Around that age is when I really got into football and I really started paying attention. And it was Thanksgiving, and I didn't know anything about football. I just knew like what it looked like. I didn't know any teams though.
Yeah.
And I watched the Dallas Cowboys play against the Arizona Cardinals on Thanksgiving Day. And I was just so attracted to the Cowboys and just like that star on the helmet. That was my like moment. Story. And then I told my dad, and I'm pretty sure I broke his heart like for the first time. Like, but like for us, it was huge. Like my dad and I, like, even though we like separate teams and separate in the same division, basically almost like your Patriots and Bills kind of thing, almost like a Jets and Patriots kind of thing. Like we still to this day bond over that. When I was in high school, we started this tradition of every season, right before the first game, because for some reason NBC or like these networks like to play Cowboys Giants the first game of the season. Like this is like the 5th year in a row, by the way, that the Cowboys are playing the Giants. It's getting a little tiring for me, but it's really cool though at the same time. But my dad and I started this tradition where we would hang 2 hats in our living room. And whoever didn't make the playoffs, you take down the other hat. It's a real cool tradition my dad
awesome,
had.
Man.
And but yeah, no, like we always talk trash to each other like during the season.
Yeah.
And like when the Giants won the 2 Super Bowls they weren't supposed to win, it was so, I was so sad that, like, on those days. But I'm happy for my dad that he got those. But I'm excited for this season and to see the Giants are really good, the Cowboys are really good. So, it's important. It's important.
Brought an interesting thing up with having your child pick their own team, which is, I mean, it's not the same level as, because I hear a lot of parents like, well, I'm going to let my child make their own decision on the religion, so I'm not going to bring them up in anything. I'm going to see, and I hear that kind of thing, and I'm always like, well, you need to give them some foundation,
Sure.
My children, like, I haven't forced like a team to, we do have like, a Buffalo Bills onesie, or we have like the little Buffalo Bills helmets around. And that's because of, my love for that team. And it's funny because my dad, it wasn't like he sat us down and was like, look, you're always going to be a Bills fan and this is how it's going to be. It was more of just like, it was a prideful thing where it was like, yeah, this is our team. This is our red, white, and blue. This is the Buffalo Bills.
Sure.
And it was like all the struggles that we went through the whole time. It just felt like my upbringing. And
Sure.
It feels like so much of a part of me. When I moved to Virginia, my dad immediately was like, so are you going to be a Ravens fan or a Redskins fan? And I'm like, no, Dad, I'm always Bills, man. I'm like hanging the flag outside of my house every Sunday. We have this flag and we hang it outside.
Okay, good. I was about to disown you.
Well, and he always harasses me. He's like, oh, so how's your Redskins, and everything. And
no.
I'm like, come on, man. And what was really funny is that my dad was here for the for the baptism. And, I brought up to him, like, he was saying, like, how he's like, you have so many good friends, like, that's a really good thing to have this support system. And I was like, Dad, I'm like, in this house right now.
Yeah, I was there.
You have a Redskins fan, you have a Cowboys fan, and you have a Giants fan, and all three of these teams beat us in the Super Bowl. And he was just kind of quiet, and he laughed. But it was true, because we're going to get on to the spouses part of this later. But it's really interesting when you can have all these different backgrounds and still get along. But just for the sake of just a fun kind of game where you're like, hey, my team's way better than yours. Look at this. We're playing you. Like, this is going to be fun.
Sure.
What other reasons is football important to you now? So, like, take that whole family tradition aspect. Why is it important to you now? And especially in the things like either be Madden or fantasy football, why is it important to you now?
That's a really good question. Football is important to me now because I feel like it gives me, football is important, I think, to like not only me, but like my family. Like, I'll even say like my family, because I feel like football is a thing that is we're easily able to just sit around the TV and really bond over an experience like no other. Like there are plenty of sports and that are great, but football, I feel like, is just different than all those other sports, where it's just more involved and there's more going into it. There's more baggage, I feel like, than a lot of other sports. And obviously there are people who are like super into whatever team from baseball or whatever team from basketball. But for me, football has always just kind of been that different sport. It's always been the it sport in my family, even though I loved playing basketball growing up. I loved watching basketball growing up. Football always had this different kind of spectacle to it, And so for us, it's really important. Full disclosure, and even just being super honest, because that's not super honest, super open and authentic to our listeners. There are certain times where I feel like football, especially in high school, the college years, a little bit after college, before I got married, football, I felt like dominated my life more than it should have. Like there were times in my life where, and even still to this day, where I feel like I plan around football. Like, oh man, Sunday, like I know when my Cowboys are playing, I refuse to do anything. Like, I refuse to hang out with people. I refuse to go somewhere. Like, I need to watch my team play on Sunday. And even there are times where I'm just like, I plan around it to a point where I feel like it wasn't healthy. And even fantasy football, I had to take a step back because I was getting really unhealthy. That attachment to that was overtaking my life. But yeah, no, it's super important to me still. And I'm even more excited. I know we'll get to it later, but I'm super excited to show my son the game of football, because I think it's just such an awesome game. But in full authenticity, it's definitely I've been in moments where it's totally changed my thought process, and I've had unhealthy attachments. I feel like even to this day, unless the Cowboys aren't shown on television, and I have to go out of my way to watch it. There was a point where I was actually going out of my way to just let you know, I'm going to the bar. I need to go watch my team, on a Sunday. But even to this day, I feel like if I know what time they're playing, that's where I'm gonna be,
Yeah, and I think that that's the way it is for a lot of people, especially nationally. This sport of football is very approachable. I don't know if it has to do with the shortened seasons, where it's only 16 games plus playoffs compared to 160 plus games, 80 plus games.
Yeah.
What is the difference for you? Because I know you're a huge Manchester United fan for, the European football. What is the difference for you as a fan? Because I know I see you waving those Manchester United colors all the time. What is the difference between this NFL sport and that?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, one, the physicality, and I can talk about the differences in sports.
I guess the ones that really affect you for now, of why you would, if you had to choose one or the other, what would it be?
I think if I'm rating my teams, Manchester United is obviously lower than the Cowboys, but like I love soccer. Like soccer in the past year, like, and we can even call it football, whatever. Like everyone, all the snobs are gonna be like, oh, it's not football, it's soccer. But for me, even in the past couple years, like my love for soccer, especially on the national level, has eclipsed anything else. Like,
interesting.
Like, because I feel like soccer, first of all, soccer and is a year-round sport, which is really cool because then you get it like every week of like the whole entire year, unless there's a huge break. And football you only get for 16 weeks plus playoffs and preseason, which is fine. Yes. And it's awesome. It makes it even more special. Like when you're rooting for your team and you know it's over, like it's just like, oh. But yeah, no, like the difference between football and soccer for me is they're different sports, obviously, but if I had to like pick one, and I know this might be blasphemous now, like, but I would actually choose like watching the American U.S. soccer team because of that national pride that I get, and I feel like when World Cups come around, like it's really cool that this nation neat. Has grown accustomed to World Cups, which is like the first step of getting us to playing better soccer on the international level. And we can jump down that rabbit hole, but I won't. But it is really cool to see like 3 years ago, because next year's a World Cup year, we left our jobs and like a bunch of other people to go to Washington D.C. to this park to watch Germany versus USA, and there was like thousands of people like in the middle of the day on like a Thursday or a Wednesday to watch soccer, which was really cool because you do get that national pride, you know, and like everyone can get behind "Go America, USA," you know what I mean? Rather than if I yell Dallas Cowboys in a bar, I'm going to get half boos, half cheers. If I yell if I start a USA chant, you know everyone's all in. You know what I mean? Like it's totally different sports, but to me, like football is great and it's really important for me. But if I had to choose a sport, like I'm gonna go with the U.S. soccer team, like all day. It's weird to say that, like, but that's just where I'm at, you know. It
makes sense to me because everyone wants to be a part of something, and whether it be a community that you can be proud of. I mean, I know if I see an actor or hear a singer and I find out that they're Catholic, there's this pride feeling to it, like, oh, they're part of my team. You know, like this is really exciting. Yeah. Or when you see World Youth Day and you see millions of people there, you're like, wow, that's so awesome. That's our Catholic family.
That's the church. Yep. Yeah.
And I can see it on a national level why football is approachable, because it is kind of magnified, a smaller season, and you have most of the time based on geography who's rooting for what team. Sure. And there's that kind of local pride thing. So, and I totally see it on that world aspect where you have soccer being this wonderful thing where you have your country that you're cheering on, something, because American football is not as universal as soccer. That's like one of the things that I think you can go anywhere, and a lot of people have that. It's very approachable, especially as a kid, to play it. But that's a really interesting aspect. The one thing that applies to this podcast is I would think that most of the time these soccer games do not take place on the Sunday.
So they're usually they are usually on Saturday or Sunday. Okay. Most of the games are on Saturday morning. And like for like just say like English soccer, like British, they're I think about 6 hours ahead. So usually it's really early on Sundays, which actually is like during mass time, to be honest with you. And like I've come to a point where I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna watch. I'll just DVR it and I'll watch it when I get home. Yeah. But it's usually like on Saturdays and Sundays, like which is interesting too.
That's the one thing I want to say. When we grew up as a kid, and this is kind of getting into our next spot, we had our mass time that we usually went to in our little redneck town of Forestville, New York. It was at such a small church, and our mass time was at 11:15. And that, to me, as a kid growing up, because I love football, like you said, you kind of like 1 o'clock is when kickoff is. I got to be watching TV. Back in the day when we didn't have DVR, or at the farm we didn't have any high-speed internet to watch anything, so it was really important that we were there from 1 o'clock to see the kickoff. So sometimes our priests, they knew like who we were as this community that really loves the Bills. Father Stabell was, as an altar server too, one of my favorite priests, because he was such a sweet, kind-hearted priest, and he looked to me, because I was a big fan of Star Wars at the time as well. He looked to me like Yoda without the big ears. And he had that same like very like lovable face, minus the green color too. And he had like the sweetest heart to him. And when we were altar serving, and we're there's that part of the mass where we're washing the priest's hands with the water, and bringing the gifts to him. And he would always he would thank us, and he would use our name. And it was always like this cool thing where he'd like, oh, thank you very much, Derek. And that was always like, as an altar server, a great moment. So we would love this priest. The thing that put him over the top for us is when he was a priest there, he would always switch with our other pastor, Father Sheehan. he would always be like, okay, he's like, it's Bill's day today, so we're gonna make sure our homily's short. We're gonna make sure you folks get out of there in time to watch those Bills play.
Yeah.
And as a kid, and because I love my dad too, it was like this bonding thing where my dad wasn't big in at church, but when I'd be serving up there, and Father Stabell would say that right at the beginning, and my dad is sitting in the front pew with my family, and my dad does one of those, fist pumps, like, yes. And
sure.
I'd look over, I'm like, this is cool. Like, our family's just united. We're at the church, and we have football. Like, it's all good. And those are some of my favorite memories with those football Sundays. So the one thing that we were kind of talking about here is football getting in the way of the Sabbath?
Sure.
Wonderful
that's
Sundays
the heart
that
of the
we have.
conversation, right? Like,
yeah.
My question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
Go.
I just had a question for you, and it kind of pertains to what we're talking about now. Is that I've seen pastors do that, like either change mass times completely because of football, which is interesting. But also, I've seen. I don't know if I've seen that like prevalent. Obviously, like it's just like 1 out of a million, right? Like, but I've also seen pastors and parochial vicars like change up, like switch, like, okay, my team is playing here, like switching, like especially like our parochial vicar, at our parish is a super Notre Dame fan, like Notre Dame football, because he went to Notre Dame and everything, and like Our Lady and everything, like the Catholic, I don't know, how Catholic, but like he'll like anytime Notre Dame's playing, he's definitely either saying that homily really fast or not there. But which is really funny. But my question to you is, what is your opinion on that, of like priests switching to watch football games or shortening homilies? But also, I don't know if you've seen this. I've actually seen youth ministers completely get off that Sunday schedule because they know they won't have traffic on Sundays because of that, and they'd rather do their youth night or their youth ministry events on Mondays or or Fridays or something like that. Like, what is your opinion on both things?
I love both of those questions. Now looking back, I don't approve of a priest shortening his homily. Like,
sure.
To me, because I mean, and full disclosure, like, I love football, but now that I'm older and an adult and a parent and a practicing Catholic, we should not shorten our days and plan it around football. And I see the errors in my ways, because as a high schooler, I didn't care that much about my faith. Football was a really exciting thing for me. Going to mass at the time was not an exciting thing, especially if I had to do the lecturing or the serving. Sometimes I did not feel, just filled with the Holy Spirit about these moments. There was times where I did feel very close to God, but for those football things, it's silly, but I would be like, is there enough time that especially if we were going to a game at 1:00, it's like, the good thing was my mom us to skip mass. It's like, go find an earlier mass. That's like the main thing. Go on Saturday. And that was really good to have that, where it wasn't like we were just committed to one-time mass and that was it. I don't support people, especially if you're planning something that should be glorifying God, football is not our first priority. And that's what we're going to be going over in some of these just reflection notes. The other thing is, for youth ministry things, I've seen that. I've seen, if it's a late game and if it's the Redskins, or especially earlier on, if it's the Redskins or Ravens, we would have our numbers lower for those nights if it's going on at the same time.
Oh, you've even seen it in your own youth ministry.
I've seen it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Especially when I started. Once I've kept going with youth ministry, I haven't seen any drop off with numbers now. And I don't know if that's just priorities have changed. I don't know. And I don't know if it's the atmosphere, what's going on, but I've seen it change. But in the beginning, like still to this day, planning something on Super Bowl Sunday just doesn't work.
Oh,
there's certain things that do not
or
work
like
at
you
all.
have to plan, like, come watch the Super Bowl with your fellow peers at youth
like
ministry.
What we
or whatever.
do, come play flag football with a couple churches. Like that's what we're going to be doing in the morning.
Oh, sweet! I want to come.
Yeah. See, hey, this year, man, Super Bowl Sunday, you can come. You can be the other all-time quarterback. You don't pull as many muscles nowadays.
Hey, I need that because I'm getting old.
So the comment that I said about Father Stabell before, I still love that man. He knew the simple crowd there. I still feel like he's not an idiot. He knows that that's going to get a chuckle. That's going to make you closer to this priest saying like, oh, this guy's on our side, and at the same time administering valid sacraments. That's very important to me. But I don't agree about like, well, I can't do mass now because this is when my team's playing, because that's the priorities. And right now for me as a youth minister, I don't get to watch football anymore, which is a really tough thing. And that's kind of like, it's been difficult because I'm either planning or, we're playing masses. It's just different. My life has kind of changed. I still love football so much. Those weeks leading up to the beginning of the season are my football season. And then it kind of goes away for me. But, in the meantime, this is what we have. There's some magical weekends that I actually get to watch a game, and that's really exciting. But all the time I'll get texts from my buddy saying like, oh dude, your fantasy team is absolutely garbage. I'm like, don't tell me. I'm like in the middle of like,
fantasy has completely changed the game too. Like I want to watch all the games because of fantasy nowadays.
I know that's the tricky thing. So, and that's the other cool thing that we can bring up in this is that we have this amazing, the fantasy world of fantasy football. And you and I are both really involved with those things, and we do enjoy it. But that's another thing in and of itself where it's like, it's really fun, but is it taking up too much of our time?
Sure.
So what I want to go over this is just like a reflection for us, and you can jump in with any of these things at all. I found this on an evangelical site, and it's talking about like, is football wrong totally on Sundays? And I was like, now this isn't from the catechism, but these are kind of reflections just to think about the questions and the Bible verses that can be attested to this. So if it's like, if following football on Sunday is a sin, and if the answer is yes to any of these questions, then it's something to you should reevaluate things that are going on in your life and in your heart, and maybe your priorities.
Well, I think everything's a sin for me then. I'm kidding. All right, let's get to it.
So the first one is, do I think about football more than I think about God?
And that's a good one.
This is going back to like, you shall have no other gods before me in Exodus. So, that's a big one. And there's times, especially when I was younger, for sure, I would think about like, if I was in mass, I'd start thinking about like, what is the matchup? How's their defense look against this quarterback? And I would be thinking about that.
And yeah. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, go for it. But
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I would find myself actually like praying for my team. And I'm like, that's not good. Like, even though, like there's always a running joke, like God's favorite team is the Cowboys, but I actually like now I find myself praying not for my team.
The Saints is the favorite team.
That's true. I actually pray for, which is weird, but I pray for actually players to not get injured nowadays. Like, I'm just like, get out of there injury free. But sorry, I'll let you go on.
I had I remember one homily the priest gave in Forceville as well. This is another priest, and he was saying that God doesn't care about the outcome of football games, and I think there's truth to both sides of that, because there are things that we don't know about that is going to lead us to closer glorification of God. And like, I mean, you look at the time and, he's not the best quarterback, but look at Tim Tebow. It brought this really interesting conversation into play. When you see players gathering around before or after game to pray, I was always blown away by that, by the way, to be in this public forum where, hundreds of thousands of people are watching you and you're able to glorify God in some way at prayer at the end. I always thought that was a very beautiful thing.
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that started to stand out more to me as I grew up and I was like paying attention to the sport. So the second one is, do I invest more money, time, or energy in football than I do in the kingdom of God? And that verse is, for where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. So that's from Matthew.
Yeah.
Do I invest more money, time, and energy? I have to admit, I had to cut down with fantasy football. I had 4 or 5 fantasy football teams a couple years ago.
You're still playing in my league, though, right? I'm kidding.
I want in on your league. No, I really do.
Sure.
But it was at the point where I was like, along with work and everything, I had to balance so many things. I'm like, this is taking up a lot. I realized it was taking up too much time. And that's when I was like, I have to drop some of these things. And so I went down to the one league, which is a really important one with me. It's my buddies from Christendom College, the Catholic college there in Front Royal. Great group of guys, and that was something that I really enjoyed being a part of. And so, I'd really pull it back. But that's an important thing to think about. It's like, are you putting more time on Sundays on, energy, time, money, all that, rather than God? The third one is, does the pursuit of football draw me closer to God or further away? And that's always
good one.
a good thing to have for. And these questions I'm also asking,
Could be
John and I would
yeah.
agree that this can go for any kind of hobby
Sure.
or anything in your life.
Sure.
Because if the answer is yes to these things, then you have to reprioritize, and that's not the worst thing in the world because you still have a chance to do that. But it is good to think about if do these things draw us closer to God. If you're realizing that, hey, the players are together and praying, and this is really good, and like when you're like, this is an amazing athlete, they're showing off this incredible physique that God has blessed them with, because some of these guys are just in different leagues physically than any of us will ever be, and it's amazing to see this on display. So the other one is love the Lord. Oh, I'm sorry. Where was I? Okay. Does the pursuit of football draw me closer to God or further away? And that's love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And that's from Luke.
Sure.
And this is another one we were kind of talking about. Does football routinely keep me away from church? And if you are, I know there's people on the West Coast that their time schedule is different with football. Like they're watching football at 10 a.m., which is crazy. And I never knew about that until I was talking to my wife about this. Where in California, their football games are on at like 10.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, if I lived in California with the way my family was, that would have been for that 11 o'clock mass. I'd be like, this is too close to what I'm doing. Like this, we have to do something else. And that's where it would have been a problem for me. And God in his wisdom made sure I lived on the East Coast where I didn't fall away from the church early on. And, now I'm old enough to really know the difference in what I was doing wrong in my thought process. But if it's keeping you away from church, you got to be careful.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's a big one. Did you never had that either because you were East Coast.
I was always East Coast. So like, yeah, never had that problem.
And the Bible verse with that was, let us not give up meeting together as for some are in a habit of doing. And that's from Hebrews. We know as our Catholic faith, man, you have to have a serious reason why you're not going to church, and football ain't going to cut it. It's just not.
Definitely not.
This one kind of applies to me, and I've been thinking about this one. Does football cause me to hang out with people who lead me astray? And I think of other people that I've talked to with sports, and it's never a wholesome conversation. And sometimes in drafts that I've had, it's always like we have foul language, and maybe we're not treating each other appropriately, and there's always this machoism with football. It's like, oh, this is like men, and this is how men talk, but we don't have to be like that.
No, we definitely don't. Like for me personally in my life, like when I was younger, even in high school and college, like, I would find myself talking trash to people or like looking down on other people who root for other teams. And I'm like, wait a minute, like totally, like let me just take a step back. Like especially after wanting to live a Christian, Catholic life. And I'm like, I don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, like I would take, so like rooting for the Cowboys, right? Let's take that for example. I kind of have to be like on my guard because like everyone like loves to hate you. Like it just comes with the territory of rooting for a team that's, super, diverse in this country. Like it's obviously like there's way bigger problems, right? Like, but
absolutely.
But honestly, like people love to hate the Cowboys, and that's totally fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up, like I always felt like I had to defend why I root for the Cowboys. Like people would always call me a bandwagon fan and stuff like that, and like not good names. And I've come to the realization like none of this matters. You know what I mean? Like none of this.
That's the big thing.
Honestly,
that is absolutely
really matters. Like, and I had to take a step back in my own life and just be like, okay, does rooting for this football team or even football in general take me away from loving and serving God with all my heart? And I found a lot of the answer was yes. Like, yeah, does this football game or does this team, me rooting for this team, cause me to be uncharitable towards others? And I found myself saying yes. And I'm like, okay, let me just take a step back and realize that none of this matters because, I should be striving to not bring other people, but I should be striving to be a charitable, God-fearing, whatever my vocation is, right? Like, and so nowadays, like I find myself people talking trash about my team or talking just trash in general. And I'm just like, like,
yeah,
I don't care. You know what I mean? Like it's just a game. Like, honestly, it's weird to say this now, but to me, I've come to the realization, like, it's like just a game. You know what I mean? It's an awesome game to root for, and it definitely brings people together. But for me, it's just like, it's fine. Like, what if my team loses? Like, I'll be sour for like 5 seconds, and got to move on with my life.
I agree with you 100% because you see these fans that I don't know, they would be giving death threats to Brian Cox, the linebacker who played for the Miami Dolphins. And, that everyone is like, it's a badge that they wear sometimes where it's like, oh, this is what real fans do. And you're absolutely right. And I came to that realization, like, I'm like, what does this really matter? And
sure,
it's not a depressing thing because, like you said, we both love football still. It's fun. But when you look at the way other people are taking it, it's too much because you honestly don't have control over your team. Sure, you can show your pride and,
sure.
It's part of who you are, but it doesn't mean you can belittle people. And really, you can say it's all in good fun, but if you're telling people these really personal things about like, oh, you should kill yourself, you're this kind of fan, that is not really engaging to a Christian attitude. Sure. And it's something to be worried about. Just recently, the Bills Mafia had a documentary made. It was a 7-minute one by Barstool Sports. And in this documentary, it just went over all of the things that Bills fans are in tailgating situations. And it is really sad because I find myself, I'm a big Bills fan. I'm just absolutely diehard. But these people are on a different level because I can't support the things that they're doing or the things they're talking about, or they think it's really funny. Like it is fun in some aspect, but then other things go way too far. And it's like, am I looking up? Do I want to be associated with these people that are doing these absolutely crazy things? Mm-hmm. And when I look at this, I'm like, that is not who I am. And I don't feel like if I was partaking in that, I would feel like I would be presenting my Catholic faith really well. So when I see that documentary, I smiled and I just shook my head where it's like, sure. I don't want this to be what these type of fans are just expected to be, where you're supposed to act like in this completely obnoxious way. I don't like that. So, the verse that comes with that is, let us not give up meeting. He who walks with the wise will be wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. And that's from Hebrews. And that kind of tied in with the other one was, does football cause me to sin? Again, we know that if we're purposely missing mass because of church, purposely, if we're purposely avoiding mass because of football, or we're purposely going out tailgating and getting absolutely blasted and drinking just out of our mind, these are things that are sins, and we need to go to confession, clear these things out. And that goes right in. If it causes you to sin, it's better for you to cut it out of your life, rather than to be thrown in hell. And this part's gonna lead to, like, do I say no to ministry related opportunities because of my involvement in football and watching it? And I want this to kind of be our segue into this next part. Am I saying no to a lot of family things because of football? And am I ignoring my wife and my children because of football? And I want to hear from you, John. Like, what is your relationship with your wife during these football? Like, is she even into football?
The answer to this.
I know the answer, but
I'm kidding. Yeah. Sure. So my wife growing up, like I've known my wife since we were like 13, 14 years old, right? Like, and my wife is from this area, born and raised Redskins fan, diehard Redskins fan, which is really cool and kind of like awkward at the same time on Sundays, because Cowboys and Redskins obviously huge rivals in the same division. But more recently, my wife, she's like awesome, and she keeps me in check. Like on Sundays, especially like there'll be a family party during a football time, and I'll be like, honey, I don't really want to go. And she's like, come on. I'm like, all right. Got you. But so my wife is, more recently, my wife has, she loves the Redskins because of her family. Yeah, she roots for the Redskins. She's always grown up rooting for the Redskins. But my wife came to the realization, I feel like, and shout out to my wife, and I hope she's okay with me saying this on air, but my wife came to the same realization that I'm coming to, like, that it's just a game and like other things matter way more, like family and God and church, and sure, the game is awesome. We come around it, it's a real bonding experience. But she came to the realization way earlier that, hey, if my team loses, it is what it is. Life will go on, and there's way more important things that we should be worried about. So it's really nice to have that and to see that. and to just be aware that my wife is like that. And like for me, my reflection goes into like, am I like doing other things that I should be doing, like spending time with my family and spending time with my kids when I'm watching football? It's like I'm at the point where I'm like, yeah, like definitely there are those moments, and like I want to be stronger, and like I fall and like I sin, and I'll let watching football come over my family at times, and I just pray that the Holy Spirit comes into me and just like allows me to step back and realize those moments. And like it's not even just football, right? It could be like anything, like video games or whatever, you know. But like I need to pray more, like, and I need to ask God for that strength, because like when those situations come up, that's when the devil's like really trying to get us, you know, like he's whispering into our ear, like, it's okay, like this is football, it's a fun game, like don't worry about your family, or don't worry about going to church, or don't worry about family prayer time on 9 p.m. when Sunday Night Football's on, you know what I mean? And it's just like, I'm in all authenticity and all openness, like I hope I can become the man who can distinguish between those moments of like, okay, I can either choose the good or the bad right now, you know? So that's kind of where we're at. And like my wife is awesome because she'll keep me in check, and like praise God for an awesome wife that does that, especially when the Cowboys are playing. But at the same time, like on my own personal side, like I am praying and I hope that I can, like I'm not there yet, you know what I mean? And like I want to be there, but it just takes a lot of work and like just like an attachment to the game, you know?
One of the biggest things that we found early on when we were married was, because of either work schedules or what was going on, we would record the game on our DVR. And in doing so, like I'd be able to see the games in such a short amount of time, because that skip button was always 30 seconds, which always matched up with the snapping of the ball. So I could get a football, and then I'd fast forward all the commercials, and I got very spoiled to having a small window of watching football. And what happened is it really changed me when I'm watching it. It takes forever to get through a game, all the commercials, all the breaks, where I got used to having that speed up process. And that kind of helped me move on to, I can pause this right now. Honey, what do you need? Let me pause the TV and let me do something. Or I'm going to stop it. I can watch it later. I just won't go on social media stuff. That really helped me. And my wife, because I told her about what our topic was going to be today. And I asked her, like, so how did you put up with me liking football? And because to me, she's always been on board with it. She grew up in California. Her family they didn't really have an alliance to any sports teams, because they had the Raiders, they had the 49ers, you know, they had at the time, but who's the other? Oh, the Chargers was the other one.
Chargers,
so
yep.
Her dad just her dad was just like, we're Raider haters. That's all. You don't have to like the Raiders. You can do everything you want.
Do they like the 49ers or the Chargers?
They're okay. My wife she never had an allegiance with any team. So when she met me and my family,
there you go.
She was like, oh, sure. And this was this thing that we did. So she began, instead of her being like, you know, that's your thing, I'm going to, you know, do my thing while you're watching football. It was always a family thing where we'd watch it together and we'd talk, and it was always, that was what it was. It was a family thing. And then I'd be telling my wife like the rules of the game, and she began getting interested. My family has this 140 person, actually we might invite you to it. We have a suicide football league, which is like once a week you just pick one team to win.
Oh, nice.
And you can't pick them ever again.
Yep.
So my wife started getting to know the teams, and she was really involved in that. And the one year she was on my fantasy league too, for football, and she got to know the players. Like I can ask her, and she will know players from other teams. And to me as a husband, it was so cool to just be like, oh honey, you wouldn't understand this football thing. She knows these things. She knows the teams, and that was kind of a closeness with us where she knew what was going on. She knew like football was a big deal in when other things were put first. But football was a family thing where I explained the rules to her. She actually was trying to be engaged with it to, you know what's going on. And that's really helped us. And I never really knew it. So my wife said, like, when I got involved with it and I showed an interest and you helped me learn it, it just became a normal thing for her. And that's how she began to like it, because she was involved. And so anybody that's out there that's just having, your wife a lot of the times just wants to be involved with some of the things you are, and you should give them a chance. And it helped with my wife and helped our relationship. So that's the one thing that I would really, put forward to you, is that you gotta somehow, even with your kids, like we throw the football around and we're playing. It's great. Right now, my kids are too small to really, like, let's go out and throw the football around. It's more like I'm up close and like catching, like, why are you so bad at catching?
Right.
Because like their motor movements aren't fully developed. But at the same time, if you have your family involved with it, it's a good bonding experience. And so just to kind of go over the stuff, and then, we got to keep Sundays priority, keep God first. Got to go to mass. You always have to keep that as Sunday. The other thing is putting family needs ahead of your stuff. If you feel like it's a sin and it's taking away, it probably is, and you might need to reorder things. And then just have your spouse involved, because you will be surprised at how much they actually do care. If you ask them, invite them to be a part of something, it doesn't have to be football. It could be anything. My wife, it was awesome to actually play through a couple video games with her from, before we had kids. Nice. That was an awesome bonding experience.
Sure. And
I really highly suggest that if you do have an interest in something, invite your spouse to be involved with it, because it'll help you with your kids getting involved with it too. Did you have anything to kind of add to this, or any listener questions?
Yeah, I wanted to put a listener question kind of like at the end of this, but at Courtside King on Twitter writes to the show just like you can. Please at us at Bad Catholic Dads on Twitter. We asked the question. We said, what do you guys think about the football season being primarily on the Sabbath day? And he said, Courtside King says, what a better way to spend the Sabbath than to go to morning mass and then spend the rest of the day relaxing with the family and friends watching football. So like, yeah, like it's definitely like, for what I would say is just like, I would add on to that. Just, it's a great way to spend time with the family, especially on Sundays, because of that. Like obviously after mass and like mass should take priority and everything. But yeah, no, it's also a great way to spend time with your family. And if you can get it to be a family thing, like every Sunday, like some of my favorite moments are just sitting on the couch with my dad, not even saying a word for like 3 hours watching the game, or forgetting football and just going out and playing and stuff like that, So,
and that's the beauty of halftime stuff. Don't watch the halftime analysis. I mean, you're going to get all of that stuff on whatever fantasy or football apps that you have. Go outside and just that halftime, just go play with your kids or something, or make sure you clean up your mess to help your wife out. That's a big thing that I have to say. And the other thing that I need to do better on is that there's time. Well, a lot of the times though, I'm kind of a person that doesn't like wearing my team's logos everywhere. And
nice.
I feel like my actions as a Catholic, like people, if they pass by my house on a Sunday, they're like, oh, they're a Bills fan. But will they know that I'm a Catholic when they pass me by? And that's the thing that I need to personally work on is, can they look at my house and my family and say, oh, they're different. They're part of the Catholic family. And I need to live my life like that, where it's very easy for someone to say like, oh yeah, they're Bills fans. And I need to have it where people can look at my family and say, that is a Catholic family. And, that's something that I'm going to always keep trying to strive for. And like you were saying, we mess up. And that's part of being just human, being a fan of football, being a bad Catholic dad, man. You mess up sometimes, and that's what happens.
Definitely 100%.
You'll do better next year, man. You just got to make the good front office.
Our team will hopefully do better next year, and we'll definitely hopefully do better next year. You know what I mean? Amen, brother.
Amen. So announcements.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on the same topic, Fantasy Football League invites. This is the final call, guys. If we don't have a big enough squad to do this team, we're not doing it.
We're at least looking for how many?
Minimum of 8.
Minimum of 8. Like, we would love to start a Bad Catholic Dad League, and then we'll also have prizes or a prize at the end of the season. So if you are listening to the show and you love fantasy football and you want to be part of a league that of like, Bad Catholic Dads or like even like spouses or whatever, just come email us at badcatholicdads@gmail.com or tweet at us at badcatholicdads. We'd love to start a league with you guys and just be in conversation and just talk about not only the faith but fantasy football as well.
At the same time, though, if you listen to this podcast and you're like, you know what, I need to spend more time with my family. I'd love to, but 100%. I shouldn't. Hey, we're definitely, we want you to get to heaven more than we want you to be on our fantasy football team. So
sure,
that's what we got to say.
Episode 4 coming up, Derek, for the Bad Catholic Dads Squared podcast, which is Books, Cinema, Digital, Derek. Coming up in the next couple of weeks. The video game, we're playing a video game this time. The video game is Valiant Hearts.
Valiant Hearts?
I need to start it. because it's coming up. But it's not that long, to be honest with you. Like if you're like, oh man, a video game must be like 60 hours long. No, it's only like 2 to 3 hours long. So play it. Let's talk about it, or replay it if you haven't played in a while. Let's talk about it, and let's talk about the faith in it and fatherhood and all that good stuff. But definitely check it out. Valiant Hearts, you can get it on Xbox, PC, and of course the greatest system on the planet, the PS4.
And if you're curious about like, oh, is it super violent? My kids had watched some of it. It really handles a lot of the violence in a very, I don't know, cartoony. It's not goofy. Like I've only played a little bit of it, but it was enough where my kids were interested in seeing it because there's like a dog in there, and it's enough where you don't have to play it in secret. You know what I'm saying? It's not like Gears of War with chainsaws or anything like that. It's more of a thinking.
Or PUBG. I got in trouble
games.
yesterday playing PUBG.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
my wife came in. My son was on my lap watching me play some PUBG, and she was like, "John, I don't want you playing this game in front of James." I'm like, "Okay."
You gotta give. All right. Yeah.
All right.
But this one wouldn't be the same as a PlayerUnknown Battleground.
Nice.
So I would definitely say it's definitely one that even your spouse, it could be a good time for you guys to, play it at the same time. But I want to have Bethany like help me out with this game too. So
awesome.
Oh, you have a great announcement right here, John.
I have the great announcement. So we got a couple reviews and some new patrons, which was really nice, which is really cool. Not only do you support the show, help the show out, but you also get a chance at winning Wonder Woman on digital, which comes out today, Derek, actually. So that's why I'm announcing the winner. Wonder Woman, I love that movie. That movie is really good. You can check out our review on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play. We reviewed it on the Bad Catholic Dad Squared podcast, so check that out. Anyway, let's announce the winner. Are you ready, Derek?
All right. Yep, drum roll.
All right. Oh, wait, hold on. I've compiled this list from everyone who's ever reviewed the podcast on iTunes, plus all our patrons.
Nice.
And so let's do this. The winner of Wonder Woman on digital release is, drumroll please, a Catholic Gamer from iTunes review. And that's actually our newest review. So let me read it, Derek. You ready?
That's
great segue. Yes, you have won. So a Catholic Gamer, if you are listening, please tweet at us or email us at badcatholicdads@gmail.com. I will say you have till next week or else we'll do another random giveaway next week for it. All right. So a Catholic Gamer says 5 stars, really great podcast. He or she says, both of them say they're not trying to convert anyone to Catholicism, but I'm not entirely sure of that. While they aren't trying to give you any facts as to why to be Catholic, which there are a lot of those, the banter, guests, and chemistry of both the hosts as well as their stories and topics happens to make for a good listen for anyone. And if they happen to convert anyone to Catholicism along the way, well, as I'm sure that they can agree, that would be pretty rad if the Holy Spirit worked through these Bad Catholic Dads. So thank you so much for review. Please email us at badcatholicdads@gmail.com or tweet at us at badcatholicdads. You have won Wonder Woman on digital release. So thank you.
Congratulations. What a great review, too.
Yeah, that is a really good review. Patreon, just letting you know, guys, Patreon, I'm trying to work on it. I want to have good rewards for supporting us on Patreon. Right now, it's kind of like charity right now. It's like, thank you so much for your support. But we definitely want to get to that point of like, hey, you want to support us? We want to give back to you, So thank you. So check out for that pretty soon.
Shout outs. I don't have really any specific shout outs right now. Just to any of the listeners lately, it's been really nice.
Yeah.
I just really appreciate that. So to the listeners right now, that's what I really do appreciate.
Yeah, same here. My shout outs are definitely to the recent influx of listener conversations we've been having through Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. It's been really nice to see people want to be in this community. That word has been floating around. We floated that word around, and now it's nice to see other people float that word around, which is really cool. To be honest with you, I know this is pretty cheesy, but you guys aren't just listeners to us. This is for Derek and I, this is our community. This is what we want to start and what we want to And what we want to, bring to the table is just like this community of Catholic men, husbands, fathers, and everyone else too, like just talking about our faith and just having a conversation. Like we definitely want to have more of this conversation piece to our podcast rather than us just talk to you like straight up for like an hour,
Yeah, I mean, it was really cool
you.
in this episode too to have that person respond and just kind of say, hey, what a better way to you go to mass and then chill out, relax with your family.
Sure.
Like we really appreciate that interaction too, because we get to see kind of where you are at in your life too. And that's just, it's nice to see that there's other people that might have the same thought process or idea that you've got, and you're not doing something completely wrong. And it's nice to know that there's more people out there that will say something that is in line with what you're doing. So we really appreciate that. Prayer requests.
Just for everyone in Houston and the kind of the area that got affected by Hurricane Harvey. Like you just look at the pictures and your heart breaks for, because not only are they like going through that, but also, they're also fellow human beings. They're also fellow children of God. It's like that really like, comes close to your heart, and like, just, definitely shout out and prayers go to them. Like anyone who's been affected by the hurricane down there.
Yeah, my prayer request goes out to the one dad at All Saints who just recently passed away from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And to have his
good friend
his
of
wife,
mine, actually.
Yeah, that was just really sad. My wife told me about that today, and that was heartbreaking. So prayers to that family. And also for the Parrington family, who are going to have this baby of theirs any day now.
Nice.
And so hopefully sooner than later, because our fantasy football draft is coming up, and we need.
Hey, didn't we just have a whole conversation on?
I know. But if Verona, if she can help us out here, like that would be great.
There you go.
So, but yeah, to that family, just please pray for them. That everything is just safe during the delivery. All right. Anything? What else we got?
Leave us a review. I know we already talked about reviews, but reviews do really help the podcast out. I think it's really cool. I think we definitely should keep up these monthly giveaways, Derek. Like, we want reviews and we want more patrons, but I also think it's good to give back to our listenership and our community here. So we're definitely going to continue to do these monthly reviews. So stay tuned for the next month review, and any review, any patron support gets you into that giveaway. So other than that, where can people find us, Derek?
Find us everywhere. You can find us Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, YouTube, Twitter, Patreon, and iOS. All those things. Just look up Bad Catholic Dads in any of those items, and you will find us there.
Hashtag Bad Catholic Dads, hashtag BCD, hashtag 44%.
44%.
See you guys next week. God bless.